Picture this. You've just pulled into your driveway after a grueling 45-minute commute in stop-and-go traffic. The engine is off. The keys are still sitting in the ignition, and your hands are resting heavily on the steering wheel. You're just staring straight ahead through the windshield at the front door of your own home. You know you should get out of the car. You know your family or your pets are waiting for you inside. But right now, in this exact moment, you couldn't possibly bring yourself to unbuckle your seatbelt. Because stepping out of that car and opening the front door means the first shift of your day is officially over, but the second shift is about to begin. The second shift isn't the one that pays your mortgage or funds your retirement account. It's the silent, unpaid labor that keeps your life from completely falling apart. You mentally scan the immediate future. There's dinner to figure out, and not just the cooking part, but the mental gymnastics of checking what's actually left in the fridge. There are the dishes from breakfast still sitting in the sink, forming a crust that'll take 10 minutes of scrubbing to remove. Then there's the laundry. You know there's a basket of clean clothes sitting on the edge of your bed that you pushed onto the floor last night so you could sleep. Tonight, you'll have to fold them, or at the very least, move them back to the bed and then back to the floor again. Let's not forget the random admin tasks of simply being an adult. You need to call the cable company to dispute a bizarre charge. You need to schedule a dentist appointment you've been putting off for 6 months, and you need to break down the towering pile of cardboard boxes sitting in the hallway. As you sit there in the driver's seat, the exhaustion washes over you like a physical weight. You're making decent money. You did everything society told you to do. You got the job, you got the car, you got the place to live. And yet, you feel like you have absolutely no actual life left to live. Your entire existence has been reduced to a pendulum swinging violently between generating income for your boss and performing basic maintenance on your own survival. Weekends aren't for rest anymore. Weekends are just a frantic, 48-hour sprint to catch up on the chores you ignored during the week. You tell yourself that this is just what being a responsible adult looks like. You convince yourself that everyone lives this way, quietly suffocating under the weight of their own daily obligations. You grip the steering wheel a little tighter, take a deep breath, and finally pull the keys from the ignition, resigning yourself to another evening of endless motion with zero forward progress. But deep down, a quiet voice is screaming that something is fundamentally broken. You're trading the best years of your physical and mental energy for a paycheck, only to spend your few remaining hours doing tasks you actively despise. It's a mathematical equation that simply doesn't balance out, no matter how hard you try to justify it. If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. The overwhelming majority of modern professionals are quietly fighting this exact same invisible battle every single evening. You look around and see your neighbors, your coworkers, and your friends seemingly holding it all together, but the reality is that behind closed doors, everyone is running on fumes. We are a society of exhausted people pretending we have boundless energy. We have been sold a massive, generational lie about what success is actually supposed to feel like. From a young age, we were handed a very specific script. We were taught that if we just studied hard, got a good job, and climbed the ladder, life would magically become easier. We believed that a higher salary would act as a protective shield against the daily grind. But for almost everyone watching this, the exact opposite has happened. The more money you make, the more responsibilities you inevitably accumulate, and paradoxically, the less time you actually have to breathe. Your promotion didn't buy you freedom. It bought you a heavier workload, a longer commute, and a baseline level of stress that vibrates under your skin from the moment you wake up. You are currently caught in what sociologists and behavioral economists call a time famine. It is a profound, chronic state of perpetual scarcity, where the demands on your schedule far exceed the hours available. Your calendar dictates your entire existence, leaving absolutely zero margin for spontaneity, deep rest, or simply existing without a purpose. The root of the problem is that we have been trained to think of wealth entirely in terms of dollars and cents. We obsessively check our bank accounts and investment portfolios to measure our progress in life. Yet, we completely ignore the fact that our most precious, entirely non-renewable resource is bleeding dry while we stare at those numbers on a screen. we have fundamentally misunderstood the true purpose of earning a living. Every single day, you are stepping out of your house and actively trading your waking hours, your prime physical health, and your sharpest mental bandwidth for a paycheck. You are performing a direct exchange of your finite life energy for currency. But then, due to a twisted sense of guilt, we refuse to use any of that currency to buy back the very thing we just traded away. We hoard the money like dragons guarding a pile of gold, terrified to spend a single dime on convenience, while we freely let our irreplaceable time slip through our fingers, doing mundane tasks we despise. This is not just about hating chores or being lazy. This is about a profound, tragic disconnect between what we claim we value most and how we actually spend our fleeting days on this earth. We say we value family, hobbies, and peace of mind, but our daily actions prove that we value saving $15 on grocery delivery more than we value a quiet Sunday morning. We convince ourselves that doing everything perfectly on our own is a badge of honor. We have somehow culturally agreed to wear our sheer exhaustion like a trophy. We use our lack of sleep and our overflowing to-do lists as proof to the world that we are hardworking, responsible, and capable adults. But let me be entirely clear about this. Chronic exhaustion is not a virtue. Being so completely drained that you can barely muster the energy to ask your partner about their day is not a sign of moral superiority. It is not a noble sacrifice to spend your one wild and precious life folding socks at midnight. It is actually a sign of a deeply broken personal system. It is a system where you are highly effective at generating income, but utterly failing to convert that income into a lifestyle you actually enjoy experiencing. You have built a machine that produces cash but consumes your soul. And until you recognize that, money is essentially useless if you do not have the time, energy, or peace of mind to enjoy the life it provides. Nothing will change. You will remain trapped in that driveway, day after day, dreading the opening of your own front door. Let us look at the actual numbers behind this exhaustion, because the data proves that this is not just in your head. Sociologists and economists have a very specific term for what you are experiencing. They call it time poverty. It is a measurable, systemic condition where the sheer volume of mandatory tasks you must complete completely eclipses the hours available in a day. And the statistics surrounding this modern phenomenon are genuinely staggering. If we look back just a few decades, the data tells a fascinating story. In the 1970s, a typical household had a clear division of labor that kept the machine running. Today, the modern dual-income household works an average of 15 to 20 more combined hours outside the home every single week than families did 50 years ago. That is an entire part-time job of missing hours, just stripped away from your domestic life. Yet, the mandatory maintenance of living has not magically disappeared. The floors still need to be mopped. The groceries still need to be bought. The grass still needs to be cut. We might have robotic vacuums and fancy dishwashers, but studies consistently show that our subjective feeling of being rushed has skyrocketed to all-time highs. We have engineered incredible labor-saving devices, but we simply allowed corporate productivity expectations to expand and consume all of that saved time. This is not an accident. The modern economy is fundamentally structured to keep you perfectly exhausted. Think about the infrastructure of the typical work week. It was designed nearly a century ago based on a social model that assumed there was a dedicated, full-time caretaker managing the home front. Now, you are expected to perform like you have no personal life while at work, and manage your personal life like you have no full-time job. It is a mathematically impossible standard, yet we all pretend it is completely normal. Society has cleverly disguised this trap by turning busyness into a bizarre status symbol. When someone asks how you are doing, the default, acceptable answer is always some variation of being insanely busy. We wear our lack of free time like a badge of honor, proving to the world that we are in demand and important. But this cultural glorification of exhaustion comes with a massive, hidden financial cost. When you are suffering from severe time poverty, you are incredibly vulnerable to what I call the exhaustion tax. Because you have zero energy left at the end of the day, you rely on expensive, impulsive coping mechanisms just to survive the week. You drop $40 on an emergency. Food delivery on a Tuesday night because the thought of chopping vegetables makes you want to cry. You mindlessly browse online retailers on the weekend, buying things you do not even need, simply because the quick hit of dopamine temporarily masks the feeling of burnout. Your refusal to systematically buy back your time actually forces you to leak money in a dozen other chaotic ways. So, you need to let go of the shame right now. It is completely natural that you feel like you are drowning. You are not failing at adulthood because your laundry is piled up or because you despise running errands. You are simply trying to operate a complex, modern life, using an outdated, impossible set of rules that were designed to keep you on a perpetual treadmill. The system wants you too tired to question the arrangement. It wants you focused on clipping coupons to save $3, while you lose 3 hours of your Saturday fighting crowds at a massive warehouse store. It wants you hyper-focused on the microeconomics of your household budget while completely ignoring the macroeconomics of your finite lifespan. To escape this, you have to realize that you cannot outwork a fundamentally flawed societal design. Willpower is not the answer here. Trying to squeeze just a little more efficiency out of your evening routine will not save you. The only way out of a systemic time famine is to start using the financial resources you have built to aggressively buy your way out of the trap, 1 hour at a time. Here's what most people don't realize. We hold on to our daily chores and refuse to buy back our time, because our brains are literally hardwired for financial scarcity, not time scarcity. Our primitive minds deeply understand the concept of hoarding tangible resources, like food or money, to survive the winter. But the human brain simply cannot conceptualize the invisible, fleeting nature of hoarding time. When you think about paying someone to mow your lawn or deliver your weekly groceries, a very specific type of mental alarm instantly goes off. You look at the $20 delivery fee or the $50 service charge, and you feel a sudden, sharp pang of guilt in your stomach. You immediately think about how easily you could just drive to the store yourself and keep that money in your pocket. This happens because you're falling into a cognitive trap known as mental accounting. You put a highly specific, emotional weight on that $20 bill. You can see it on your bank app. You can physically hold it. And you know exactly how many frustrating emails you had to answer at work to earn it. But you don't put a tangible, emotional weight on the 2 hours of your Saturday afternoon it takes to do the task yourself. You're actively treating your own time as if it's infinitely free, because there isn't an immediate, visible price tag hanging directly on your weekend hours. Your brain tricks you into thinking those hours have zero monetary value. By refusing to pay a small fee to avoid a task you hate, you're essentially valuing your own precious free time at exactly $0 an hour. Think about how deeply irrational that actually is when you zoom out. You just spent 40 or 50 hours at your job aggressively proving that your time is highly valuable to your employer. You negotiated a specific, professional salary for those hours. Yet, the exact moment you clock out and drive home, you suddenly devalue your remaining limited hours to absolute zero. We also suffer heavily from a psychological block called the DIY illusion. There's a deep-seated, culturally enforced belief that paying for basic convenience is inherently lazy, spoiled, or financially irresponsible. We feel like we have to nervously justify outsourcing our chores to our peers. We mistakenly tell ourselves that only billionaires or celebrities are allowed to have housekeepers, meal prep services, or personal assistants. If you finally decide to pay for someone to deep clean your bathrooms, you might actually feel deeply embarrassed if your friends or neighbors find out. You feel this bizarre, instinctive need to apologize for it, or you make up a quick excuse about having a uniquely busy week at the office. You do this because society has quietly linked your basic morality to your physical domestic labor. We falsely equate suffering through endless chores with being a good, responsible adult. This psychological guilt trip is exactly why you find yourself sitting on the couch on a Tuesday night, completely paralyzed by decision fatigue. Your brain has been making complex, high-stakes decisions all day at your job. Now, it's being forced to make low-stakes, highly irritating decisions at home, like what to cook for dinner with 3 random, expiring ingredients left in the vegetable drawer. Decision fatigue physically and chemically drains your Willpower. Every tiny, forced choice chips away at your remaining mental bandwidth. By stubbornly refusing to outsource the mundane, repetitive tasks, you're actively choosing to spend your most valuable cognitive energy on things that don't matter at all. You're essentially using $1 million supercomputer to do basic first-grade arithmetic. This scarcity mindset creates a vicious, endless loop that keeps you chronically exhausted. You proudly save $20 on grocery delivery, but you lose your patience with your family because you're incredibly stressed from navigating the crowded aisles. You save $50 by cleaning your own house, but you ruin your entire weekend and wake up on Monday morning feeling completely drained before the work week even begins. You're constantly stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. You're aggressively optimizing your life for the absolute lowest financial cost, while blindly ignoring the catastrophic emotional and physical cost of doing it all yourself. You might be winning the tiny battle of the weekly household budget, but you're entirely losing the larger war for your actual life. To escape this endless cycle of exhaustion, we need to build a new system. We are not going to rely on willpower or trying to magically become more organized. Instead, we are going to implement a 3-part framework called the Time Value Arbitrage. The very first step of this system is something I call the energy audit. This is completely different from a standard time audit, and understanding that difference is the key to finally getting your life back. Most traditional productivity advice tells you to track your hours. They tell you to make a spreadsheet and log every 15-minute block of your day to see where your time is going. That advice usually fails completely. It fails because it treats all hours as if they are created equal. It assumes that an hour spent folding laundry has the exact same biological and emotional weight as an hour spent reading a book to your kids. But you know from personal experience that this is simply not true. Certain tasks have a disproportionately massive impact on your mental bandwidth. The goal of the energy audit is not to track the duration of your chores. The goal is to track the invisible friction of those chores. You are hunting down the specific, mandatory activities that make you sigh out loud before you even start them. Here is exactly how you execute this audit. For the next 7 days, you are going to keep a very simple list. In the Notes app on your phone, you do not need a fancy spreadsheet. Every time you perform a domestic task outside of your actual job, you are going to quickly write it down. You write down making dinner, mowing the lawn, paying bills, or scrubbing the shower. But next to that task, you will not write down how many minutes it took. Instead, I'm going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, based entirely on how much it drained your soul. A 1 means you genuinely did not mind doing it. A 10 means you actively dreaded it, procrastinated on it, and felt thoroughly irritated the entire time you were doing it. You might find that some tasks are surprisingly neutral. Maybe you actually enjoy watering the plants on Sunday morning. Maybe folding warm laundry while listening to a podcast is a relaxing, mindless activity for you. If a task scores a 1 or a 2, you keep it. You are not trying to outsource your entire existence. You are only looking for the heavy anchors. You are looking for the level 10 tasks. For many people, the ultimate level 10 task is the weekly grocery run. Think about what that actually entails. It is not just walking down an aisle. It is fighting traffic to get to the store. It is circling the lot for parking. It is navigating around oblivious shoppers, waiting in a long checkout line, loading the car, driving home, and then carrying heavy bags inside just to spend another 20 minutes putting everything away. That entire process might only take 2 hours on a clock, but it completely drains your energy reserves for the rest of the day. It is a level 10 energy vampire. For someone else, the level 10 task might be deep cleaning the bathrooms. After a long week of intense mental labor at your office, the absolute last thing you want to do is get on your hands and knees and scrub tile grout while breathing in bleach fumes. By the end of the week, this simple audit will give you a very clear, highly objective map of your personal friction points. You will stop looking at your weekend as one giant, overwhelming blob of stressful responsibility. You will suddenly see that your exhaustion is not generalized. It is heavily concentrated in just 2 or 3 highly specific recurring chores. You are isolating the tumors. You are identifying the exact activities that are single-handedly dragging down your baseline happiness and stealing your weekend recovery time. This is an incredibly empowering realization because it completely reframes the entire problem in your mind. You are no longer a victim of a chaotic, unmanageable life. You are simply someone who has a few highly inefficient bottlenecks in their weekly operations. You do not need to hire a full-time personal assistant to fix your life. You just need to perform surgical strikes on the exact tasks that cause the most friction. Once you have identified your level 10 energy drains, you are ready for the second phase of the system. You know exactly what you hate doing. Now, you need to figure out exactly how much it will cost to make those specific tasks disappear forever. You are ready to put a hard, undeniable mathematical boundary around what your peace of mind is actually worth. You know exactly what you hate doing. You have your list of level 10 energy vampires from the audit. Now, we have to cure the psychological guilt of actually paying to get rid of them. To do this, we need to introduce the second phase of the system, which is calculating your true personal hourly rate. This is the exact mathematical boundary that will give you absolute, undeniable permission to start outsourcing your life. Most people think their personal hourly rate is just their annual salary divided by the 2,000 hours they work every year. If you make $100,000 a year, you might assume your time is worth about $50 an hour. But that calculation is entirely flawed. That number only tells you what your employer is willing to pay to rent your brain during business hours. It tells you absolutely nothing about the actual value of your precious weekend recovery time. Because your free time is incredibly scarce, the basic laws of economics dictate that it must be significantly more valuable than your working hours. You have a massive surplus of working hours, but you only have a tiny, rapidly shrinking inventory of true free time. Therefore, we need to calculate what an hour of your peace of mind is genuinely worth to you. Here is a very simple formula to establish your baseline threshold. Take your annual take-home pay. Let us pretend it is $80,000. Drop the last 3 zeros, which gives you 80. Now cut that number in half. That leaves you with $40 an hour. This is your absolute baseline. But because we are valuing your scarce free time, I want you to multiply that baseline by 2. Your true personal hourly rate for this exercise is $80 an hour. This $80 an hour is your new ruthless financial threshold. It is the invisible price tag hanging on every single hour of your weekend and every single evening. After you clock out, you must start looking at your personal time through the lens of this exact dollar amount. Once you lock this number into your mind, the entire concept of doing chores completely flips upside down. Let us apply this directly to one of your level 10 tasks. Imagine it takes you 2 grueling hours every Saturday morning to mow the lawn, edge the driveway, and sweep up the grass clippings. Under your old way of thinking, doing this yourself was free. But under the new system, those 2 hours are costing you $160 of your personal time capital. Now, imagine the neighborhood teenager or a local landscaping service offers to do that exact same job for $40. Your scarcity brain immediately screams that you are losing $40. But your new, system-oriented brain realizes something profound. You are not losing $40. You are spending $40 to instantly buy back $160 worth of your own life. That is the definition of the time value arbitrage. You are trading a lower value currency, which is the cash in your bank account, to aggressively acquire a much higher value asset, which is your finite time on Earth. Let us run the same math on the grocery store nightmare. You usually spend 2 hours on Sunday afternoon driving to the store, fighting crowds, and hauling bags. That is $160 of your time capital, completely burned to the ground. A grocery delivery service might charge a $10 service fee plus a $15 tip for the driver. You are paying $25 to protect $160 of your energy. You are instantly netting $135 in pure profit, paid out directly to your mental health. Now, You might try to argue with the math. You might say that you are not actually getting paid to sit on your couch on a Sunday, so it is not real money. But that is exactly the trap. Time capital is actually far more real than the dollars in your bank account because time is a decaying asset. You can save a $20 bill in a drawer for a decade and it will still be there. You absolutely cannot save a Sunday afternoon in your 20s or 30s to use later when you retire. When you adopt this specific calculation, your entire identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a lazy consumer who is bleeding cash on unnecessary luxuries. Instead, you start seeing yourself as a rational investor who is aggressively acquiring severely undervalued assets. And the most desperately undervalued asset in your entire portfolio right now is your own rest and recovery. When you run this equation against the specific tasks from your energy audit, the guilt instantly vaporizes. You finally have mathematical permission to stop doing the things you hate. This hard boundary protects you from creeping obligations and societal expectations. You have established the rules of the game. Now, you need to put this into motion so it happens automatically, without you even having to think about it. Now that you have established your true hourly rate and identified your level 10 tasks, it is time to build the machinery of your escape. This is the third and final step of the system, which I call frictionless delegation. It is absolutely critical that you understand the word frictionless here. If your new system requires any level of weekly willpower to maintain, it will inevitably collapse. If you have to consciously decide every single Sunday whether to pay for grocery delivery, your scarcity mindset will pull you right back into the trap. You cannot rely on your exhausted brain to make good decisions when it is already depleted. The goal of frictionless delegation is to remove the decision-making process entirely. You are going to treat these new outsourced services exactly like you treat your internet bill or your car payment. They must become permanent, automated, and non-negotiable, fixed costs in your monthly budget. They are no longer optional luxuries that you debate buying. They are essential infrastructure expenses required to keep your life running smoothly. Let us look at how you actually implement this. Starting with a weekly grocery run. You are not going to just download a delivery app and blindly scroll through it every Saturday morning. That still takes a much mental energy. Instead, you will sit down one time on a day when you are well rested and build a master list of your absolute staple items. These are the things you buy every single week without fail, like milk, eggs, bread, coffee, and basic vegetables. Once you have that list built in the app, you do not touch it. You set it to automatically reorder and deliver on the exact same day every single week. You are completely removing the mental gymnastics of inventory management from your brain. You will never again have that sinking feeling on a Tuesday night when you realize you have nothing for breakfast tomorrow. The groceries simply appear on your doorstep like magic, requiring absolutely zero bandwidth from you. If your level 10 energy vampire is cleaning the house, you apply the exact same logic. You do not wait until the bathrooms are disgusting and then frantically try to hire a cleaner at the last minute. You find a reputable local service and you book them on a permanent, recurring bi-weekly schedule. You give them a garage code and you set up automatic payments through your bank. You make the process entirely invisible to your daily conscious thought. Look, here is the truth. When you first set up a recurring cleaning service, you are going to face a very specific psychological block. You are going to feel a powerful urge to clean your house before the cleaners arrive. You will find yourself frantically picking up clutter because you are embarrassed for a stranger to see how you actually live. You have to aggressively fight this urge. You are paying them to handle the mess, so you must let go of the ego and let the system work. When you first turn all of this automation on, the initial weeks are going to feel incredibly strange. You are going to experience what I call phantom anxiety. You will be sitting on your couch on a Saturday morning and your body will physically tense up. Your brain will start screaming at you that you are forgetting to do something important. You will feel a bizarre sense of guilt for simply sitting still and drinking your coffee while the sun is shining. This happens because your nervous system has been conditioned for years to associate weekends with frantic, low-level panic. It takes time for your body to realize that it is safe to rest. You are not just buying back the physical hours it takes to do these chores. You are buying back the massive, invisible mental load of managing them. By building a frictionless system, you are giving yourself the ultimate luxury, which is the freedom to wake up with absolutely nothing on your agenda. Let us look at the actual mathematics of what happens when you fully implement this system, because the numbers are absolutely staggering. When you finally build these automated, frictionless systems, you are not just saving a few random minutes here and there. You are systematically acquiring a massive, compounding asset. We need to break down the math slowly so you can truly visualize the transformation taking place in your life. Let us be highly conservative and assume your new system buys you back exactly 10 hours a week. It sounds relatively small when you say it out loud. It is just avoiding the 2-hour grocery run, the 2-hour house cleaning, and maybe 6 hours of random domestic chores and errands spread throughout the week. You might think 10 hours is a nice little bonus, but hardly life-changing. But let us extrapolate that number. 10 hours a week is roughly 40 hours a month. Think about that for a second. 40 hours is an entire, standard American work week. By simply offloading a few targeted, highly irritating tasks, you have literally bought back an entire extra, a week of your life, every single month. You have magically created a 13-month calendar for yourself, where that final month is pure, unadulterated free time. Now, let us drag that math out over the course of a single year. 10 hours a week multiplied by 52 weeks is 520 hours. That is nearly 22 full, 24-hour days of continuous, uninterrupted time. It is essentially an entire month of waking hours that you have completely reclaimed from the void of mundane responsibilities. Now, you might be thinking about the financial cost. So let us address the cash side of the equation. Let us assume you spend $150 every single week, paying for grocery delivery, a bi-weekly cleaner, and a neighborhood kid to handle the yard work. Over a year, that comes out to roughly $7,800. To your primitive, scarcity-wired brain, looking at a yearly expense of $7,800 just for convenience sounds terrifying. It sounds like the kind of reckless spending that financial gurus yell at you for on the internet. But you have to remember the second step of our system. You have to remember your true personal hourly rate. If your true personal hourly rate is $80 an hour, then those 520 hours you just bought back have a real, mathematical value of $41,600 in personal time capital. You just spent $7,800 in cash to acquire $41,600 worth of your own life. That is an incredible, asymmetric return on investment. You are performing the ultimate financial arbitrage. But the true magic actually happens in the compounding effect of what you do with those recovered hours over the next decade. Because when you stop operating in a constant state of time, poverty, your entire financial ecosystem begins to repair itself. Think about the exhaustion tax we talked about earlier. When you have those 10 extra hours a week to genuinely rest, you completely eliminate the desperate, impulsive spending that comes from burnout. You stop dropping hundreds of dollars a month on emergency takeout because you actually have the energy to eat the food you already have. You stop mindlessly shopping online for a dopamine hit because you are no longer chronically depressed by your own schedule. Furthermore, you can actually deploy a fraction of that newly acquired time capital into high-yield activities. If you take just 3 of those 10 recovered hours and use them to sleep more, you will perform dramatically better at your primary career, potentially accelerating your income. If you use them to learn a new high-income skill or build a side business, you can easily generate returns that dwarf the $7,000 cost of your outsourcing system. Over a decade, 10 hours a week compounds into 5,200 hours of newly injected life capital. Think about what you could do with 5,000 hours. That is enough time to master a completely new language. Write 3 novels. Get in the best physical shape of your life. or simply be a highly present, completely unhurried parent to your children while they are still young. You are quite literally buying years of your life back, while you are still healthy enough to actually experience them. The math undeniably proves that clinging tightly to your cash, just to suffer through chores, is the single most expensive, devastating financial mistake you can possibly make. Now, you might be thinking, I get the math, but I just can't justify spending money on something I'm perfectly capable of doing myself. It feels incredibly wasteful. I hear you. And it's completely normal to feel that way. We're fighting against decades of deeply ingrained cultural programming. We were raised by a generation that viewed physical labor and self-sufficient household management as a core pillar of being a responsible adult. You're looking back at your parents or grandparents who seemed to handle it all without ever complaining. But they lived in an entirely different economic and technological landscape. They didn't have smartphones tethering them to their bosses at 9 o'clock at night. They didn't have the same invisible, crushing mental load that the modern corporate world demands. You can't compare your exhaustion to theirs because the rules of the game have completely changed. You have to stop viewing these automated services as luxury purchases. You aren't buying a fancy dinner or a designer watch. You're buying the most rapidly depleting, non-renewable asset in the universe. If you don't aggressively protect your time capital, it'll simply evaporate. Look, here's the truth. If you treat your own free time like it's completely worthless, the world will happily agree with you. If you value your weekend hours at $0, you'll always find yourself trapped doing $0 tasks. Your bank account might look a tiny bit healthier at the end of the month, but your soul will be entirely bankrupt. I'm not asking you to hire a full-time personal assistant by tomorrow morning, just asking you to run a very small, highly controlled experiment to prove the math to your own nervous system. You need to let your body actually feel the physical relief before your brain will fully accept this new reality. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I want you to pick just one of your level 10 energy vampires. Pick the absolute worst one from your audit list. I want you to permanently outsource it, but just for one single month. Just commit to 4 weeks of intentionally buying back your time. If it's the weekly grocery run, download the app, pay the monthly subscription fee, and schedule your staples for the next 4 weeks. If it's the lawn, call a local service and prepay for the next 4 cuts. Don't worry about the annual cost right now. Just spend the $50 or $60 to buy back your upcoming weekend. When Saturday morning finally rolls around, I want you to sit on your couch with a cup of coffee and just pay close attention to your body. Notice the sudden, unfamiliar absence of dread. Notice how your shoulders actually drop when you realize you don't have to fight traffic, wait in lines, or scrub a floor. That specific feeling of weightlessness is exactly what actual wealth tastes like. We've been taught that wealth is about the digits on a screen or the brand of the car parked in the driveway. But true wealth is the ultimate, quiet power to wake up in the morning and have complete, unshakable autonomy over your own schedule. It's the ability to look at a beautiful Saturday and decide to do absolutely nothing at all without a single ounce of lingering guilt. Money is just a tool. It's a key. You've spent your entire adult life working incredibly hard to collect these keys, but you're terrified to actually put them in the lock and open the down door. Stop hoarding the keys while you remain locked in a cage of your own making. It's time to, finally, let yourself out. Before you go, I want you to leave a comment down below and answer this one specific question. What's your absolute worst level 10 energy vampire? And what would you actually do this weekend if you never had to do it again?